All right, welcome back, Deep Divers. For those just joining us, this is the fifth deep dive we've done on Laura Wonder's work.
Yeah, it's been a great series so far. Really enjoying it.
Yeah, I think what makes her work resonate so strongly with me, and probably many of our listeners too, is that she doesn't shy away from the challenges.
Right, her own struggles.
Exactly. And, I think that authenticity resonates with people.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
There's not just up there on a pedestal, saying,
Yeah.
do this, do that. It's more like she's walking alongside us saying, hey, I've been there. I've made those mistakes too.
Right, exactly.
And here's what I've learned along the way. And that's what makes her new book, Thinking Clearly, 10 Steps to Smarter Decisions and Mental Clarity, even more exciting, I think.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's out on February 22nd, but you can pre-order it now on Amazon.
Right, and we'll make sure to put a link in the show notes as always. But, before we get into the nuts and bolts of the book,
Yeah, let's talk about that title for a second.
Thinking Clearly. It sounds so simple, right?
But it's so crucial in today's world, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, think about it. We're bombarded with information from all sides, constantly making decisions, big and small.
Yeah, it can be totally overwhelming.
Totally. And sometimes, let's be honest, we make some pretty lousy decisions.
Oh, tell me about it. I've made my fair share, that's for sure.
We all have. But that's where I think Laura's work is so valuable. She provides a framework, a roadmap for making smarter, more intentional choices. Now, for anyone who hasn't had the chance to dive into Laura's previous books, let's take a quick pick at her Amazon bio.
Yeah, good idea.
It says, and I'm quoting here, Laura LaWonder is passionate about helping people unlock their potential to live a life filled with purpose, love, and joy.
And you can really see that passion reflected in her work.
Definitely. Now back to the new book, Thinking Clearly. What's the central question that this book is grappling with?
Well, the Amazon description starts with this really thought-provoking question. What does it truly mean to think clearly in a world that's increasingly complex and demanding?
That is a good question.
It is, right. Like, it's not just about knowing the right answer. It's about being able to sift through all the noise.
There are all the distractions, the bias.
Exactly, and make decisions that are aligned with our values and goals.
And then there's this line in the description that really stood out to me. This is not about being perfect. It's about making choices with intention and resilience.
I love that, because none of us are perfect.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
We're all going to make mistakes.
That's part of being human.
It is. But it's how we learn from those mistakes, how we bounce back, that really matters.
Resilience is key.
It really is. And speaking of things that can trip us up, the description mentions something called hidden biases.
Ooh, yeah. Those can be sneaky.
They can. What are these hidden biases and why are they so dangerous?
Well, think of them as these mental shortcuts our brains take.
Ah.
They're often unconscious.
So we don't even realize they're there.
Exactly. And they can lead us to make decisions that aren't really in our best interests.
Can you give us an example of a hidden bias?
Sure. One common one is confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias. Okay, what's that?
That's when we tend to seek out information that confirms what we already believe, even if it's not necessarily true.
Ah, I see. So we're filtering out information that challenges our worldview.
Exactly. And that can obviously lead to some pretty bad decisions, especially when it comes to things like, politics or relationships.
Right. So if we're not aware of these hidden biases, they can really steer us in the wrong direction.
They can. But the good news is, once we become aware of them, we can start to challenge them.
And make more objective, informed decisions.
Exactly. And that's one of the things I'm really looking forward to exploring in Laura's book.
Me too. It's like she's giving us a secret weapon in the fight against our own minds.
Yeah, kind of.
All right, let's move on to the table of contents. One of the things I always appreciate about Laura's books is how clearly they're structured.
Yeah, she's very logical, very step-by-step.
Exactly. And this book is no different. The table of contents is like a roadmap, guiding us through each step of the process.
Which is perfect for the learner in all of us.
It is. So let's pick out a few chapter titles that jump out at us. Okay, the first one that caught my eye is The Split-Second Decisions That Shape Our Lives.
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
It is, right? I mean, we make so many snap judgments throughout the day.
Without even thinking about it.
Exactly. Like, should I hit the snooze button? Should I grab that extra donut?
Yeah, those everyday choices.
But those seemingly small decisions can actually have a big impact on our lives.
They can, and I think that's what Laura's getting at in this chapter.
It's about becoming more aware of those split-second decisions and making them more consciously.
Instead of just operating on autopilot.
Right. And then there's this other chapter title that really intrigued me. Biases, the invisible drivers of decision-making. We already touched on biases, but what do you think she means by invisible drivers?
Well, it goes back to what we were saying earlier about how these biases operate beneath the surface of our awareness.
Uh, yeah.
They're like these hidden forces influencing our thoughts and actions without us even realizing it.
So it's not just about making bad decisions, it's about not even knowing why we're making them.
Exactly. And that's what makes them so dangerous.
Because if we don't know what's driving our decisions, how can we make better ones?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
It is, and I think that's what Laura's book helps us to answer.
By shining a light on those blind spots in our thinking.
Exactly.
You know, one thing that strikes me is how timely this book feels.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Well, like we were saying earlier, the world is just so much more complex now than it used to be.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Information overload, constant distractions.
exactly. And Laura actually addresses this directly in a chapter called Adapting to Modern Cognitive Challenges.
Oh, wow, so she really is tackling the issues of our time.
She is. It's like she understands the struggles we're all facing.
Like trying to stay focused when your phone is buzzing every 5 seconds.
Right, or feeling like you're constantly behind, like you can never catch up.
Totally.
Hmm.
So what do you think she might suggest in that chapter? Any guesses?
Well, I'm sure she'll talk about strategies for managing information overload for sure.
Yeah, like setting boundaries with technology.
Exactly. And maybe prioritizing tasks so we're focusing on what's truly important.
Because it's so easy to get caught up in the busy work.
Yeah.
You know?
It is. And then there's this other chapter title that really caught my attention. Strengthening your slow thinking muscle.
Slow thinking muscle, huh? I like that. What's that all about?
Well, it seems to be all about cultivating our ability to, well, slow down.
Interesting. Because we live in such a fast-paced world.
We do. Everything is instant gratification.
Right. So how do we actually strengthen this slow thinking muscle?
Well, I'm imagining she'll talk about practices like mindfulness or meditation.
Ah, okay. So it's about being more present, more intentional.
Exactly. And also probably about taking time to reflect, to really think things through before jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because sometimes our gut reactions aren't always the best guide.
No, they're not. And you know, this idea of slow thinking actually connects really well with another chapter, building mental resilience for clearer decisions.
Resilience. That's a word we hear a lot these days.
It is, but it's so important, especially when it comes to decision making.
Okay, so how do we build this mental resilience? What does that even mean?
Well, I think it's about developing the ability to bounce back from setbacks.
So not letting those tough decisions completely derail us.
Exactly. It's about being able to stay calm under pressure and make choices that are aligned with our long-term goals.
Even when we're feeling stressed or overwhelmed.
Especially then, because let's be honest, when we're feeling frazzled, that's when we're most likely to make impulsive decisions.
Oh, totally. So Laura's book is like a guide to staying grounded amidst the chaos.
Exactly. And speaking of staying grounded, there's another chapter title that I think is really relevant here, creating a decision-making routine.
Ooh, a routine. That sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
Well, I'm envisioning it as a set of guidelines or a framework that we can use to approach decisions in a more systematic way.
So it's like taking the guesswork out of it.
Exactly. It's about having a process in place so we're not just flying by the seat of our pants every time we need to make a choice.
Right, right. Because sometimes the hardest part is just knowing where to start.
Totally. And I think that's what this chapter is all about. Providing us with a starting point, a foundation for making more intentional and consistent decisions.
And do you think she'll talk about the importance of aligning those decisions with our values?
Oh, absolutely. I can't imagine her not addressing that because at the end of the day, it's not just about making smart decisions, it's about making decisions that feel right for us.
Decisions that are in alignment with who we are and what we want to achieve in life.
Exactly. And, you know, this idea of aligning our decisions with our values actually leads us perfectly into the final chapter, which is called
Your next chapter, Becoming a Clearer Thinker.
Yes. It's like the culmination of everything we've been talking about.
It is. It's about taking all of these insights and strategies and putting them into practice so we can actually create lasting change in our lives.
Exactly. It's about moving from theory to action.
And becoming the best versions of ourselves.
I love that because ultimately that's what this is all about, isn't it?
It is. It's about personal growth, self-discovery, and creating a life that feels authentic and fulfilling. Welcome back, deep divers. We're in the home stretch now, wrapping up our look at Laura's Thinking Clearly.
And I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty
Me
energized.
too. It's
Yeah.
like my brain is buzzing with all these new ideas and strategies.
Right. Like, I can already see how this book could make a real difference in my own life.
Totally. All right, so let's jump into a couple more chapters that really stood out to me. One that caught my eye is emotional intelligence, the key to wise decisions.
Ah, yes. Emotional intelligence. That's such a crucial piece of the puzzle, isn't it?
It is, and I feel like it's something that's often overlooked.
Totally. Like, for so long, we focused almost exclusively on IQ, our cognitive ability.
Right, like how smart are you on paper?
Exactly. But now, thankfully, there's a growing awareness that our emotions play a huge role in how we think and make decisions.
Huge role. And it's not just about understanding our own emotions, right?
No, it's also about being able to recognize and understand the emotions of others.
That empathy piece.
Yes. And Laura actually touches on this in the description of the book.
Oh, gushy.
Yeah, she talks about how thinking clearly will help us navigate complex social dynamics with grace and confidence.
Ooh, I like that. Because let's be honest, sometimes those social situations can be a minefield.
They can, especially when you throw emotions into the mix.
Right. Like if you're not aware of how your emotions are influencing your interactions, you can easily say or do something you regret later.
Oh, totally. I've been there. So I'm really curious to see what specific strategies Laura offers for developing our emotional intelligence.
Me too. And speaking of things that can make decision-making tricky, there's another chapter that I think is super relevant to our modern lives.
Which one is that?
Overcoming decision fatigue. Strategies for sustainable clarity,
Oh, decision fatigue. That is so real.
isn't it? Some days I feel like I've made a million decisions before I even leave the house.
I hear you. And it's like the more decisions we make, the harder it becomes to make good ones.
Right. Our brains just get fried.
Totally. So how do we combat this decision fatigue? What does Laura suggest?
Well, based on the chapter title, it seems like she's all about finding strategies for sustainable clarity.
Sustainable clarity. I like that.
Right. It's not just about making a few good decisions here and there. It's about creating a system that supports us in making clear decisions consistently over time.
Which makes sense because decision making isn't a one-time event. It's something we do every single day.
Exactly. And I think this idea of sustainable clarity ties in really well with another theme we've been talking about,
Which is
resilience. Because if we can build up our mental resilience, if we can learn to bounce back from those moments of decision fatigue, then we're setting ourselves up for success in the long run.
absolutely. It's like we're creating a positive feedback loop. Clearer decisions lead to more resilience, which leads to even clearer decisions.
Exactly. And that's a pretty empowering thought, I think.
It is. And as we wrap up our deep dive into thinking clearly, I'm left with this sense of hope and possibility.
Me too. It's like this book is a reminder that we have more control over our thoughts and decisions than we often realize.
Right. And that by developing those mental muscles for clarity, resilience, and emotional intelligence, we can create a life that feels more aligned with our values and goals.
Absolutely. So for anyone listening who's feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or just plain curious about how to make smarter choices, I highly recommend checking out Laura's new book.
Yes, thinking clearly. 10 steps to smarter decisions and mental clarity.
It's available for pre-order now on Amazon, and it releases on February 22nd.
Don't miss it. And in the meantime, as you go about your day, ask yourself this. What's one decision I can make today with more intention and clarity?
That's a great question. And remember, even small shifts in our thinking can lead to big changes in our lives.
Absolutely. So keep those minds sharp, those hearts open, and those decisions intentional.
Until next time, deep divers.